Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest is expected to launch his campaign for the federal Conservative leadership on Thursday in Calgary. Joining me now to talk about this is political analyst Karim Boulos. Thank you so much for joining us, Karim.
My pleasure.
So, is Charest the right leader for the party, and why? Will Quebecers be persuaded to switch from maybe the Liberals to Conservatives if he's the leadership?
I think we're maybe jumping a step ahead a little bit too quickly because Mr. Charest has yet to become the leader of the Conservative Party. I think what's been dogging the party for the last at least 3-4 years is an identity question, identity crisis, some would say. What is the Conservative Party? It's no longer the progressive conservative of the Mulroney years. Mr. Harper happened to control the party quite well, but now there's clearly a divide between the former Reform Party and the former Progressives. So will the people out west in the Conservative Party choose Mr. Charest, a Quebecer, as their leader going forward? I think it's going to be a tall order just to get past, especially with Mr. Harper's comments about how he's openly said he's going to prevent that from happening.
So why would Mr. Charest start his campaign in Calgary and not Quebec?
Well, that's the base he has to win. I think right now in Quebec, having a familiar face as an alternative to Mr. Trudeau is certainly appealing to Quebecers who are maybe not as pleased with the way things have been handled over the last few years. And certainly the call for an election to end up with another minority government is working against Mr. Trudeau. So I think it would be wise of him to launch his campaign out west and see what the reaction is. Because like I said, first he has to win over his caucus and the party members to make sure that he does get the leadership.
With his record as federal MP, cabinet minister, Quebec Premier, does he stand a real chance of winning the leadership?
Before he made a jump to provincial politics, we remember him in Quebec as a Liberal. Mr. Charest is a Conservative. He was an up-and-coming rising star in the Conservative Party. He was quite popular. I think people saw him as a future player within the party. So I think he does stand a fighting chance. I think his experience in Quebec may be, having been called in on some potentially questionable practices with the Liberal Party and financing and funding and who their friends are and what kinds of projects they approved, may come under scrutiny. And I think the Liberals will try to tap into that. But I think Mr. Charest would be an interesting choice. He is perfectly bilingual. He is from the East, but again, his roots are conservative. And I think he still has a strong support base. But again, like I said, it's far from done within his own caucus. I think the public might see him favorably at large if you look at a broad perspective of the country. But like I said, he's got to overcome the first hurdle.
Thank you so much for joining us, Karim.
My pleasure.
In 1 minute on City.